Picture this. You're scrolling through Instagram, and you see your favorite Hollywood couple posting another perfect vacation photo. Hearts in the comments. Relationship goals everywhere. But what if I told you that behind that carefully curated image, their relationship has been dead for months, maybe even years? I've spent over 2 decades watching the most glamorous marriages in America crumble behind closed doors. And today, I'm going to expose the brutal truth about Hollywood divorces that no publicist wants you to know. Here's a statistic that will shock you. 56% of all marriages end in divorce. But when you factor in the ones that stay together for appearances, for money, or just because they're too afraid to face the truth, we're looking at nearly 70% of marriages that are fundamentally broken. In Hollywood, that number is even higher, but they've mastered something the rest of us haven't: the art of the beautiful lie. If you're ready to see behind the velvet curtain of celebrity relationships, smash that like button now. And stick around until the end. I'm going to reveal the 3 warning signs that every Hollywood divorce has in common, and why they might be happening in your own relationship right now. Let me tell you something about celebrity couples that will change how you view every red carpet photo, every social media post, every candid paparazzi shot. They're performing. Always. I've seen it countless times. A couple walks into my office and their marriage died 2 years ago, but their Instagram, still posting anniversary celebrations. Their publicists, still sending out statements about how in love they are. It's gaslighting on a massive scale, and we're all falling for it. Here's what really happens behind the scenes. These couples have what I call the luxury of distance. When you own 5 houses across 3 different states, when you have separate film schedules, separate entourages, separate lives, you can avoid each other for months without anyone noticing. Regular people, we live in the same house, we share the same bed, we can't hide from our problems. Celebrities can rent a house in Malibu just to avoid having dinner with their spouse. And here's the kicker. They've convinced themselves that this distance is normal. That scheduling a conversation with your husband like a business meeting is just how successful marriages work. They'll fly to opposite sides of the world, not talk for weeks, then show up to a movie premiere holding hands like nothing happened. The cameras flash, the crowd cheers, and everyone goes home thinking they've just witnessed true love. But what they've actually seen is 2 actors giving the performance of their lives. I remember one case where a very famous couple hadn't spoken directly to each other in 8 months. Everything went through assistants. Their kids' schedules, holiday plans, even intimate conversations, all filtered through staff members. But every week, without fail, they'd post these elaborate date night photos. Professional photographers, perfect lighting, designer outfits. The comments would pour in, "You two are perfect together. This is what love looks like." But the truth? They couldn't stand to be in the same room without a camera crew present. The reality is that celebrity marriages often exist in this weird parallel universe, where the public relationship becomes more real than the private one. They start believing their own publicity. They see the comments, the magazine covers calling them the perfect couple, and they think maybe if they just keep pretending, it might become true. Spoiler alert, it never does. But it's not just celebrities who do this. Regular people do it too, just on a smaller scale. How many of your Facebook friends post constantly about their amazing husband, their perfect family, their incredible life, but then you run into them at the grocery store and they look miserable? We've all become performers in our own lives, just without the budget for professional photographers. The difference is that celebrities have enough money to make the performance last longer. They can afford separate lives, separate spaces, separate realities. The rest of us? We're stuck in the same house, confronting our problems every single day. And sometimes that's actually healthier. Now, let me break down the 3 deadly poisons that destroy every Hollywood marriage I've ever witnessed. The first one might surprise you, but it's the most dangerous relationship killer of our time: social media. You think social media is just harmless fun? Think again. I call it the infidelity generation machine. Here's how it works. You post a photo, and suddenly you're getting DMs from old flames, from strangers, from people who want a piece of your success. The validation is intoxicating. Your marriage might be struggling, your partner might not be paying attention to you anymore, but here are dozens of people telling you how gorgeous you look, how successful you are, how they wish they could be with someone like you. It starts innocent enough. A like here, a comment there. Then it becomes private messages. Then it becomes meeting up for coffee to catch up with an old friend. Then it becomes something your spouse definitely wouldn't approve of. And here's the thing, it's all documented. Every message, every photo, every late night conversation. When couples end up in divorce court, social media becomes evidence. I've seen marriages destroyed by Instagram DMs, by Facebook likes, by Twitter interactions that started as harmless flirting and ended in hotel rooms. One case that still haunts me involved a couple where the husband was a major action star. Seemed like the perfect marriage. They'd been together for 15 years, had 3 kids, constantly praised each other in interviews. But the wife discovered he'd been having an emotional affair through Instagram for almost 2 years. It started with him liking a model's photos. She started liking his back. Then came the DMs, then the private phone calls. Then the secret meetings whenever he was filming in her city. The wife found out because she saw a charge on their credit card for a jewelry store she'd never heard of. When she investigated, she discovered her husband had bought another woman a $50,000 necklace. But here's the twisted part. He'd been posting anniversary tributes to his wife the entire time he was cheating. The man was literally writing poetry about his eternal love while buying diamonds for his mistress. The second poison is money as a weapon. In regular marriages, money problems usually bring couples together. You figure out a budget, you make sacrifices, you work as a team. In Hollywood marriages, money becomes a tool for control and punishment. I've seen prenups that read like psychological warfare manuals, clauses that reduce a spouse's settlement based on weight gain, agreements that void financial support if the other person speaks publicly about the marriage, contracts that essentially turn love into a business transaction with performance metrics. Once reviewed a prenup where the wife would lose $100,000 from her settlement for every pound she gained over her wedding weight. Another case involved a husband who controlled his wife's access to their accounts based on her social media activity. Too many posts with male friends, and her credit cards got frozen. These aren't marriages. They're employment contracts with sexual obligations. The worst part is how money corrupts the basic foundation of relationships, trust. When you can buy your way out of consequences, when you can hire teams of lawyers to rewrite reality, when you can literally purchase silence, you lose the ability to have authentic conversations. Everything becomes transactional. Love becomes a commodity to be negotiated rather than a bond to be nurtured. One Hollywood wife told me that she realized her marriage was over when her husband offered her $2 million to pretend their relationship was working for one more year. Not to actually work on their problems, not to go to therapy, not to rebuild their connection, just to pretend for the cameras. She said it was the most insulting thing anyone had ever said to her, not because he was trying to buy her silence, but because he thought her love was for sale. The third poison, and perhaps the most devastating, is how fame destroys authentic intimacy. Real intimacy requires vulnerability. It requires showing your partner who you really are when no one's watching, when you're not performing, and when you're just human. But celebrities spend their entire lives performing. They have public personas that are so polished, so carefully crafted, that they forget who they actually are underneath it all. I've watched couples who couldn't have a genuine conversation because they'd both become characters in their own lives. Every interaction was calculated for effect. Every emotion was filtered through the lens of how it would look to others. They'd lost the ability to be real with each other because they'd forgotten how to be real with themselves. One celebrity couple I worked with had been married for 12 years, but the wife told me she felt like she'd been living with a stranger. Her husband was charming and funny in interviews, passionate and intellectual in his films, but at home, he barely spoke. She said it was like he'd used up all his authentic emotions for the cameras, and there was nothing left for her. He'd become so accustomed to being watched, analyzed, and judged that he couldn't turn off the performance even in his own bedroom. This creates a vicious cycle. The less authentic they become with each other, the more they crave real connection. So they start looking for it elsewhere, with fans who worship the public version of them, with co-stars who only know their professional persona, with anyone who hasn't seen behind the mask. But these connections are just as hollow as their marriage because they're based on the same performance, the same carefully crafted image. The tragedy is that underneath all the wealth and fame and glamour, these are just people who want to be loved for who they really are. But they've spent so long being loved for who they pretend to be that they've forgotten the difference. And when their marriages inevitably collapse, they're left with nothing but the performance, wondering if anyone will ever love the person they actually are when the cameras stop rolling. Now, let me walk you through the 3 phases of every Hollywood divorce I've witnessed. Phase 1 is what I call the silent erosion. This is where the real damage happens, long before anyone notices there's a problem. It starts with the small things. They stop paying attention to each other. In regular marriages, this might mean forgetting to say good morning or not asking how your partner's day was. In celebrity marriages, it means scheduling your entire life to avoid spending time together. They'll take separate cars to events. They'll book different hotels when traveling. They'll plan vacations that coincidentally don't overlap, all while maintaining the public facade that they're madly in love. But here's the thing about attention in relationships. It's like a muscle. If you don't use it, it atrophies. Stop paying attention to your partner for long enough, and eventually you won't remember how. I had one case where the couple hadn't eaten a meal together, just the two of them, in over 3 years. They'd go to restaurants for photo ops, attend dinner parties for networking, but they'd never sat across from each other and just talked. When I asked them why, they couldn't give me an answer. It had just gradually happened. One canceled dinner became 2, became 10, became a way of life. The tragic irony is that they were both desperately lonely. They'd each hired personal assistants whose job was essentially to provide the emotional support they weren't getting from each other. They'd rather pay strangers to listen to their problems than risk being vulnerable with their spouse. Because vulnerability requires trust, and trust requires time, attention, and presence. 3 things that had been sacrificed for their careers. Phase 2 is the performance escalation. This is where things get really twisted. As the private relationship dies, the public performance becomes more elaborate. The Instagram posts become more frequent and more dramatic. The red carpet appearances become more affectionate. The interview quotes about their love story become more poetic and over the top. It's like they're trying to manufacture authentic love through social media metrics. If enough people believe they're happy, maybe they'll start believing it themselves. But it's exhausting to maintain a lie that elaborate. Every public appearance becomes a stress test. Every photo has to be perfect. Every interaction has to be analyzed for how it will look to the outside world. I've seen couples spend more money on their anniversary photo shoot than some people spend on their entire wedding, all to convince the world that their marriage isn't falling apart. Professional photographers, makeup artists, wardrobe stylists, location scouts, all to create one perfect image of love that doesn't actually exist. And the comments pour in, goals, perfect couple. This is real love. But the couple goes home to separate bedrooms and doesn't speak for the rest of the week. The performance becomes so consuming that it starts to replace the actual relationship. They put more effort into appearing happy than being happy. They spend more time planning photo ops than planning their actual life together. They know more about their public image than they do about each other's inner thoughts and feelings. Phase 3 is the explosion, when everything finally comes to light. This is where the carefully constructed facade collapses, and the world gets to see what's been happening behind the scenes. Usually it's triggered by something undeniable. Infidelity, a public argument, substance abuse issues, financial impropriety, something that can't be spun or managed or covered up. And suddenly, all those perfect Instagram photos look sinister. All those gushing interview quotes seem fake and calculated. The public feels betrayed, like if they've been lied to, because they have been. The couple that everyone thought was relationship goals was actually a case study in how not to maintain a marriage. But here's what's really heartbreaking. By the time phase 3 hits, the damage is usually irreversible. The pattern of avoidance, performance, and emotional distance has become so ingrained that they've forgotten how to actually connect with each other. They're like two actors who've been playing the same roles for so long that they don't know how to exist without the script. I've mediated countless divorce negotiations, where both parties admit they still love each other, but they have no idea how to be married to each other anymore. They've become strangers who happen to share a last name and a publicist. The people they fell in love with years ago are buried so deep under layers of image management and public performance that they might as well be fictional characters. Now, here's the part that's going to make you uncomfortable. This isn't just a Hollywood problem. Regular people do this too, just without the budget and the paparazzi. How many couples do you know who post constantly about their amazing relationship but seem miserable in person? How many marriages are held together by Facebook likes and Instagram hearts instead of actual communication and connection? We've all become performers in our own lives. We curate our relationships for social media consumption. We present highlight reels instead of reality. We're so busy looking like we're in love that we forget to actually be in love. And when the performance becomes more important than the truth, we end up just like those Hollywood couples, beautiful on the surface, empty underneath. The difference is that most of us can't afford separate houses and personal assistants and image consultants. We're forced to confront our problems because we can't hire teams of people to help us avoid them. And sometimes that's actually a blessing. Sometimes being stuck in the same house with someone forces you to work through your issues instead of just managing around them. But the temptation is still there. To post the perfect photo instead of having the difficult conversation. To present the image of happiness instead of doing the work of actually being happy. To perform love instead of practicing it. Here's what I want you to understand. Authentic love isn't photogenic. Real relationships are messy, complicated, sometimes boring, often inconvenient. They require showing up when you don't feel like it, having conversations when you'd rather avoid them, being vulnerable when you'd rather be protected. None of that looks good on Instagram. None of that gets you magazine covers or product endorsements or invitations to exclusive events, but it's real. And real is what lasts. Real is what survives the inevitable challenges that every relationship faces. Real is what makes you want to wake up next to the same person for the next 30 years. Not because they look good in photos, but because they see your soul and love it anyway. The Hollywood couples who actually make it, and there are a few, are the ones who choose reality over image. They're the ones who turn down the photo shoots and the magazine interviews and the opportunities to monetize their love story. They're the ones who understand that the moment your relationship becomes a brand, it stops being a relationship. So here's my challenge to you. Look at your own relationship, your own marriage, your own patterns of communication and connection. Are you performing love or practicing it? Are you more concerned with how your relationship looks to others or how it feels to you? Are you putting more energy into your social media presence than your actual presence with your partner? Because here's the truth that no one wants to hear. Relationships fail for two fundamental reasons. First, you don't know what you want. Second, you can't express what you want. Everything else, The money problems, the infidelity, the growing apart is just symptom and root cause getting confused. You can't expect your partner to read your mind. You can't expect them to automatically know when you're unhappy, when you feel neglected, when you need more attention or more space or more romance or more support. Your partner can't hear what you don't say, and vice versa. Ignorance is rarely bliss for long. Most people spend more time researching which car to buy than they spend discussing the fundamental expectations and desires they have for their marriage. They assume that love conquers all, that if you're meant to be together, everything will just work out naturally. But marriage isn't natural. It's a choice you make every single day. It's a skill you have to develop and practice and refine constantly. The Hollywood couples who crash and burn aren't fundamentally different from the rest of us. They just have more resources to avoid dealing with their problems, which means when those problems finally surface, they're so much worse that they're usually unsalvageable. Money can't buy emotional intelligence. Fame can't purchase genuine intimacy. Success can't substitute for the basic human skills of communication, empathy, and presence. If you want to avoid ending up like those cautionary tales on the covers of tabloid magazines, you have to be willing to do the unglamorous work of actually knowing and being known by your partner. You have to care more about the health of your relationship than the appearance of it. You have to choose connection over image, reality over performance, presence over prestige. Marriage is like the lottery. You're probably not going to win. The statistics are brutal, but if you do win, what you win is so valuable, so irreplaceable, so fundamentally life-changing that it's worth the risk. But you can't win by accident. You can't win by just showing up. You have to be intentional, strategic, and completely committed to playing the game with integrity. The secret that Hollywood doesn't want you to know is that there are no secrets. There are no shortcuts. There's no amount of money or fame or success that can substitute for the basic work of loving another human being well. And that work is hard and unglamorous and sometimes boring, and definitely not Instagram-worthy. But it's also the most meaningful thing you'll ever do. Because at the end of your life, when all the achievements and accolades and public recognition fade away, what matters is whether you were truly known and loved by another person. Not the image of you, not the best version of you, not the carefully curated highlight reel of you, but the real, messy, complicated, imperfect, beautiful human being that you actually are. So let me ask you this. What story is your relationship telling? Is it a performance designed for an audience, or is it a genuine connection between two people who've chosen to build a life together? Are you more concerned with getting likes on your anniversary post, or with actually celebrating the real milestones of your partnership? Are you living your love story, or are you just posting about it? If this video has opened your eyes to the reality behind the Hollywood facade, hit that like button and let me know in the comments. What's one way you're going to prioritize reality over performance in your own relationship this week? And if you want to dive deeper into the psychology of what makes relationships actually work, not just look like they work, subscribe for more content that cuts through the noise and gets to the truth about love, marriage, and what it really takes to build something that lasts. Remember, every relationship ends, either in death or in divorce. The question isn't whether your story will have an ending, but what that story will be about while it's being written. Make sure it's worth telling, not just worth posting.